This is the iPhone SE second generation and it still runs iOS 26. This is a phone that came out back in 2020. It used the physical housing of an iPhone 8, which borrowed design language from the iPhone 7, but was powered by the same chip found in the iPhone 11 Pro. And basically, the iPhone SE second gen just borrowed a lot of pieces that already existed, classic Apple move, and they basically Frankensteined this phone into a rather small form factor. And as of December of 2025, when I'm making this video, this phone is still running the latest iOS 26 software. Let's get right into it. Now, I got this phone on eBay very recently for just $65, including taxes and shipping. The only catch here was that this phone has 74% battery health, which means that this phone is obviously due for a battery replacement. But since this phone is outside of warranty, we're just gonna use it as is because, yeah, that's gonna be an additional 50, 60 bucks that we'll have to spend. But otherwise, I was actually very surprised with how good of a condition this phone was in. It's very hard to see the scratches on the back here. There's really no visible dents or deep scratches in the screen itself, but it does look like the original owner here had some issues putting the charger into this phone because it is quite scratched up. But for the price that I paid, it's honestly in pretty good condition. I do wish that this phone came with this original box, but for $65, guys, we really can't complain. And this phone is also factory unlocked, so that's pretty cool. Now, when I got this phone, it was on iOS 18, but I did end up updating it to 26 for this video, and immediately I just noticed this very visible lag when scrolling through the home screen, scrolling through apps. Things just didn't really feel all that natural. And on top of that, I was filming a YouTube short, which I'm sure a few of you guys may have seen. This phone was already at 10% battery when I started filming, so that might have been a factor as to why this phone felt a little slower when I was filming that short. But afterwards, I threw it on the charger. I didn't touch this phone for a week. Here we are making this video today, and right as I took it off the charger, not even 15 minutes, guys, into scripting this video, and this phone's already at 95% battery. But with all these things aside, let's actually take a look at this phone from a practical standpoint. And you can actually pick one of these up today for under $75. Keep in mind though, it's more than likely gonna have a bad battery. I mean, over here we have 74% battery health, so not the greatest battery. And this is a phone that came out in 2020, 6 years ago. That's crazy to think about. The pandemic was like 6 years ago. That's insane. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you guys here is that because we're on iOS 26, we can actually sign into our Apple ID perfectly fine. We don't have any limitations here when it comes to installing apps or actually signing in to our Apple services because we're running the latest software. So this phone will literally support any app you could possibly think of. Just be mindful of how much storage you have. This is the base model 64 gigabyte version, and it looks like with just a few apps installed, we have just under 40 gigs of storage remaining when we're on the iOS 26 software. Now, just want to quickly mention, guys, that it's kind of cool. For under $75, you can get what is arguably like one of the most important devices when it comes to the Apple ecosystem, and that's the iPhone. And you can literally be on the latest iOS. Like, what other Apple device can get you into the Apple ecosystem for that price, if you think about it? So honestly, it's not a bad deal, but you're gonna have a couple compromises if you think about it. Now, I did want to go through a couple app demos here. I did tell you guys that most apps do work, but just want to show you guys what everything looks like from a performance perspective. You guys can see here we have Instagram opened up, and it looks literally the exact same as your normal Instagram app would look on just any other device running iOS 26, and that's a really huge plus because that means that this device has obviously been optimized to run this version of the app. Now, obviously, because the screen is a lot more smaller, things might feel a little bit more crammed, so keep that in mind. The other thing I wanted to show you guys here as well was just opening up YouTube. So let's just play a random video that we see on my timeline. We'll play a Mr. Beast video. We'll go ahead and skip that ad real quick, and let's do picture in picture just to show you guys. So you can see it does take up quite a lot of space on this screen. I believe this is a 4.7 inch size display. So you can see if you really wanted to do picture in picture, I mean, it's gonna take up a pretty decent amount of space on this device. So do keep that in mind. And you can see here, we do have a lot of golden retrievers on my feed. Definitely a huge dog lover, but yeah, you guys can see here, scrolling wise, it's not that bad. It actually works perfectly fine, and you're not really going to experience that much lag. Now, the one thing I will probably say is you might need a little bit of patience. We are running with 3 gigs of RAM on this phone compared to 4 gigs, which is what the iPhone SE third generation has, which I actually have right here. This is actually my dad's phone. So yeah, we're going to be limited. So there might be a little bit of patience you might need. Maybe wait a couple seconds or two just to wait for whatever app you're trying to load, but otherwise scrolling through things really shouldn't feel all that bad. And I'll also show you guys here that Spotify works too. I mean, it's iOS 26, so it's gonna work just perfectly fine. So we'll go ahead and just play this song. You guys can see here we got the liquid glass control center, and we have it on our home screen as well, and it even adjusts the album artwork size, so you can do that. I don't know, I feel like the animation here is a little slow, but I compared it to my iPhone 17 Pro Max and it just doesn't really feel all that smooth. So I don't think this is an issue with the phone. I think it's just an issue with the software itself. So do keep that in mind. And you guys can see here, we obviously have iMessage, background photos as well. I was sending myself some text messages for some tires that I was thinking about buying, but yeah, take a look at this. It is pretty cool. The keyboard here is also going to be very, very small, especially if you're trying to switch between emojis and trying to access your number pad. So yeah, I mean, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, especially with the size of this display. So keep that in mind. But I think it's pretty interesting, guys. Like, 6 years ago when Apple engineered and created the A13 Bionic chip for the iPhone 11 Pro, I promise you guys, they did not have iOS 26 in mind. This phone isn't meant to run iOS 26, but it can if you want. And I would actually prefer to stay on iOS 18, just to be honest, because performance does matter to me a little bit. So if performance is important to you and you happen to be on iOS 18, don't update to iOS 26 just yet. I mean, the software came out a couple months ago, so things are going to be buggy. Maybe wait a few months, maybe wait right before iOS 27 comes out. But yeah, some lag is expected, especially given the 3 gigs of RAM that we have on this phone. Okay, now the next thing we're going to go through real quick, guys, are some photo samples. Now, I usually like to include these in my videos from both a daylight and nighttime perspective, but just to give you guys some quick context here, this phone has a 12 megapixel camera. It's decent. It's nothing crazy. It's not even a fusion camera either. And the only really thing you're going to get here is optical image stabilization. You get portrait mode as well as 4K video, which is a huge plus. But this phone does lack a lot when it comes to night photography. So it's not going to have features like night mode and also no ultra wide lens as well. So you guys can see here with the photos in the daytime that I took outside, they actually look just perfectly fine. It's definitely going to become a lot more noticeable when you try to use digital zoom. Obviously, this phone doesn't have a separate telephoto camera, so you are going to be compromising in terms of camera quality when you're trying to take photos from afar and you're trying to zoom into something that's really far away. And you can see here with the nighttime photos, again, it's not going to look the best. This phone doesn't perform that well in nighttime photography, so do keep that in mind. But also, guys, just because we're on iOS 26 doesn't mean that it's going to change the way that the camera performs. The one thing you'll notice, of course, is how the interface looks in the camera app itself, but the camera is obviously physical. It's built into the device. So regardless of whether you're running iOS 18 or 26, the camera isn't going to be the best. So do keep that in mind. Now, I did want to quickly go over the physical design here as well, guys. One thing to absolutely point out is this phone does not have MagSafe charging. Now, this is a trend that we've seen with a lot of budget iPhones like the iPhone SE lineup, as well as the iPhone 16e. That one also does not support MagSafe charging, but you can still wireless charge this device. Things are just gonna fall off, or they're gonna slip off the back of this device because it doesn't have any magnets to actually hold it into place. I also mentioned this before, the screen is also very small. I noticed this especially when trying to delete an app on the home screen. You can see here, especially when it's in the corner, it is very hard for the screen to register my finger. So that was pretty common, right? Like that's something I noticed quite a lot. So because the screen is small, maybe it's because my hands are too big. I use a Pro Max iPhone as well. So I don't know. I feel like this is something you'll just have to get used to. The screen is very small. So coming from a larger iPhone 17 Pro Max, this is a huge transition for me, but I would expect if you're coming from a smaller phone, this probably won't be too big of a problem. Now, I also just wanted to quickly show you guys here, when we put both of these phones side by side, of course, we have the SE 2nd Gen right here and the SE 3rd Gen. This is my dad's phone. This one actually looks a little bit more blue as well. I don't know if you guys can see that. But yeah, the SE 2nd Gen has 3 gigs of RAM. The SE 4 has 4 gigs of RAM. And also keep in mind that the SE 2 does not support 5G, whereas the SE 3 does. It's not going to support millimeter wave 5G for those who are here in the US, but you know, hardware wise, they're going to be the exact same phones. You guys can see here, there really is no difference when it comes to how these phones physically look. The battery also is just going to be a slight bit better on the SE3. But here's my take. If you're really considering both of these phones, because obviously both of them do run iOS 26, if you can get an SE3 for under $100 and it's unlocked, go for it. Especially if it's in good condition. I think that the SE3 is obviously a much better deal when you're getting it for under $100, assuming you're getting the base storage. And also guys, bottom line, do not let anyone charge you more than $100 for the SE second generation in particular, especially if this phone is used and is the base model 64 gigs. I promise you guys this phone is not worth that much. If you're spending close to 100 USD, you might just want to buy the SE3. And this is going to be for my American viewers out there. I also wanted to say it might be a good idea to double check if the cell phone plan that you're currently paying for has what is known as ultra wideband 5G. You can usually find this in the description of what's included in your plan. But the reason I bring this up is because the iPhone SE 3rd Gen supports just regular 5G. It does not support millimeter wave 5G. So if you're paying extra for a feature that you're not even going to be able to use, you might want to look into maybe downgrading that feature on your plan. I feel like a lot of these cell phone carriers, especially here in the US, can be a little scammy sometimes. They might try to, pull some extra money out of you. So just double check on that. Make sure you're not paying for a feature that your phone isn't even going to be able to support. Now, the next part of this video, guys, is going to be kind of interesting. Now, if you think about it, the iPhone 6s is the longest supported iPhone. It has received 4 years worth of security updates on the same iOS 15 in this case. The last update for this phone literally came out just a couple months ago, actually on the same day that iOS 26 was released. So Apple is still providing security updates for a 10-year-old iPhone, which is kind of insane when you think about it. Now, when I think about this, when it comes to the iPhone SE 2nd Gen, iOS 26, to be honest, is probably going to be the last major iOS for this device, but that doesn't mean that Apple isn't going to provide security updates in the future. If I had to guess, I'm pretty confident Apple's going to continue to provide these security updates for at least the next 4 years. For the SE3, it might be an additional 5 years, but we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe we can revisit this device in 2030 and we can make another video on this channel. But guys, the iPhone SE 2nd Gen is such a great first iPhone, especially for someone who's looking to get into the Apple ecosystem, or even if you need a backup device. I know I'm going to be traveling to Brazil in a couple months. I don't know if I want to take my 17 Pro Max. I'll see. I might take this as a backup. The other thing, guys, I also forgot to mention is this phone also has a SIM card slot, which might not sound that exciting, but for someone who lives here in the States, that is a pretty big deal for an iPhone because that gives you a lot more flexibility, right? That means I can walk into a Walmart, pick up a prepaid SIM card for like $10 and get service on this device. It just makes the process so much easier because I'm not gonna lie, guys, the onboarding process for eSIM is kind of complicated sometimes, and especially for someone who's unfamiliar with the process, that's going to be a little annoying. Or if you live in another country, right, having a physical SIM card slot is really, really helpful. But yeah, it's really cool that Apple has basically reused a design from 2016. If you think about it, the iPhone 7 is what pioneered the design of this phone. Fast forward to 2020, Apple is basically still using that same design, and they have literally put like the least amount of effort into making this phone. It's actually kind of funny, right? Like, don't take this the wrong way, but like when Apple released this phone, they didn't even do like a proper presentation. They just released it via a press release, and that usually happens when it's like a smaller product release. But they also released an ad as well, but like the ad had such a low budget because like it looks like it was just entirely computer generated. But yeah, it just comes to show that like Apple will do whatever they want to do to get as much money out of these smaller devices because they've spent years researching and developing a design that has worked. And so they don't want to keep putting so much money into the design of this phone. And so if it works and they can sell it for a cheap price, that's great. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If y'all are interested in checking out this device, I do recommend checking out eBay. There's a lot of good deals on there, but also guys, do not get scammed and don't let someone charge you more than $100 US. Anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.